Hello everyone, and welcome to something of a hot take video featuring one of my favorite spells in the game in D&D, as well as an issue that may or may not have actually plagued you within your own games. So, providing context to this, I love the spell Speak with Animals. It's a ritual spell and basically does what it sounds like. It allows you to be able to speak with animals and for you and them to understand each other in return. And likewise, the Eldritch invocation, Beast Speech, is also one of my favorites. And this is something you get with Warlocks, by the way. This Eldritch invocation basically gives you the ability to have Speak with Animals up as a passive. You can cast this spell at will whenever you want, and it's great. I've had it on 2 of my characters, and it's very enjoyable for RP, diplomacy, and scouting, and all in all, it's a really good utility spell. But despite having this on 2 different characters, I got much more mileage out of it for a specific character in comparison to my other one. So let me break down what exactly I'm talking about. In one of my games, through some incredibly fun custom lineage shenanigans, I created a character that was basically a magical lab rat that had amassed a cult-like following amongst other rats. He became their leader and was going on a quest with the other PCs in hopes that acquiring a hero status would help foster diplomatic relations between humanoids and his rat empire. And also, due to how I created my character, I was actually able to carry one of my attendants around with me for a majority of the game. And also here, take note. Urchin background, Eldritch Adept Beast Speech, really fun combo. You get a pet mouse as part of your starting equipment, and using Beast Speech, you can talk to them whenever you want. And of course now, if I get a lot of comments on this video saying like, hey, include this in a build somewhere, like elaborate please, because this sounds like a lot of fun, let me know in the comments and I will be more than happy to go over this because this was a blast. But anyways, the Rat King was just going around and talking to all kinds of beasts we found along the way on our quest. I was talking to fish in the local pond to figure out if there was some sort of lake monster or treasure at the bottom of said lake. I got a bunch of rats to join my cause and lead an uprising against a group of humanoid slavers. And I really got to work with this ability and get a ton of use out of it, and it was really helpful for the party too. But now we move on to the other situation of when I was trying to use his ability, but with a different character. My Warlock Tabaxi Hexblood, one who revels in mud, or just mud for short. Using Silencia Initiate and some fun spell and ability flavoring, Mud's abilities all stemmed from his magical swamp patron that he called home. He was going on a quest to the other continent because that is the source of where the colonization was coming from. People were being sent over to go and basically just lay waste to Mud's land for resources, and he was trying to put a stop to it. And due to all of the swamp nature theme, that was what I used to flavor a lot of my spells. And with this aspect of this swamp nature bayou, that's where I got a lot of Mud's flavoring abilities from. So I really try to take spells, abilities, and just other features that would really showcase just how connected Mud is to nature. And you guessed it, one of the abilities that I took in order to show just how connected Mud was to nature was one of my Eldritch invocations, Beast Speech. And I was intending to use this ability similarly to how I used it for the Rat King, for general utility and helping out my party. However, it reached a point where the experience of using the spell was so beyond useless, it almost felt like I was being punished for having it on my sheet. We were in more of an urban setting, and yes, I can already see you in the comments being like, oh my goodness, what did you expect? You're in an urban city setting, how were you expecting to get any kind of use out of this invocation? And you're right, but also, I'd like to raise you with a minor counter-argument. We were in a more urban setting, yes, and I'm aware that you're not going to have, tons of forest critters running around, but I still wanted to try to make do. One of the big parts about Mud was the fact that he was so far from home. He wasn't in his bayou, he was in the big city. And part of working with Mud was figuring out how exactly he was going to adapt to this new environment. And so one of the things Mud would do is he would try to find or seek out just local creatures. Go to New York or go to any city. You've got pigeons, you've got maybe city rats or other sorts of creatures running around. So it's not out of the realm of possibility to say it might not be as effective as it would be in a forest, but even in an urban setting, you can stand to reason that you can still talk to certain creatures. And of course with this, I was just trying to make do. And very much how I did with the Rat King, with Mud, I would just go up to creatures and just try to get a general lay of the land. Even in one arc, we thought that there were monsters running around in the subway of the city, and so I just started asking animals about it. Like, hey, have you happened to seen a very large, scary creature that's just been running through the tunnels? And even finding something as simple as yeah, sorry buddy, I don't really know what you're talking about, we don't have any weird monsters that have been hunting the subway, was something painfully hard to get out. And even for the few times we went into a more natural setting within our campaign, like a forest or whatever, it was still incredibly hard too. Talking to the regular flora and fauna was also painstakingly useless. And it didn't even really matter where I was or what sort of creatures I was talking to, but the only thing that was consistent was that through each of these interactions, how incredibly difficult it was for me to actually get any kind of use out of this spell. Sometimes I would literally get a single word out of animals, like, hey, can you help me with this? I don't know, and just said creature flies away or runs away. And so, please pardon my rant, but getting back on track, the issue here, especially with warlocks, is your invocations and even spells can be very hard to come by. And if you find that your abilities suck, or are literally just not being helpful, it can make you feel frustrated that you even took them. I could have made a blaster warlock, or really led into the crowd control aspect that I was aiming for with Mud, but I really didn't want to sacrifice the flavoring and RP potential. But in turn, I felt like I was mildly punished for taking this Eldritch Invocation instead of picking one that would have been more optimal for my build. Players put a lot of stock into utility spells, and while yes, it's not great to always lean on the same solution again and again and again, but that doesn't mean that players should be punished for which spells and abilities they take. And also too, this spell is one that's up to the interpretation of the DM. Some might make the animals very capable of higher thought with you, others might just be super dumb. And now this is where I want to step into for a very important tool for you as players and DMs. Players, talk with your DM about how they would rule certain spells and abilities to work before you end up putting them on your sheet. Or even too, before you end up revolving an entire character around them. I mean, once again, we do a lot of builds on this channel. Sometimes you take one mechanic, and that can be somewhat of a loose interpretation, and you might want to craft an entire build around it. And if you find that, hey, your DM isn't really willing to swing that way, it kind of ruins everything that you had planned. So make your intentions of taking a certain ability perfectly clear with your DM, and ask them how they would rule or RP certain aspects of it. And if they're cool with the ability you want to use, give them a warning about how you would typically want to use it in-game, as well as even how frequently you think you would be using it. Make sure you're on the same page. And also too, with a spell like Speak with Animals, which is, very RP based, improv can be hard. And I will admit, trying to roll up the personality and stats or characteristics for a flock of pigeons out of the blue can be difficult. And it's not the standard thing that you as a DM would, probably use in your world building and prep. And also too, I'm saying this from personal experience. I've been on the receiving end of this spell. In one of my own games, I was DMing for my friend who was playing a warlock with the same invocation. When my friend said, yeah, I'd like to use Speak with Animals, it's like, oh cool, so this flock of crows now all needs to have personalities. So I'm well aware that sometimes you do need to have NPC voices for different animals in your back pocket, just in case your players are inclined to use an ability such as this. And now, for DMs. Please don't punish your players for taking certain utility spells and abilities, especially if they're even for something like RP and utility instead of combat. Now, I can get, sometimes being a little harsh on a spell or an ability ruling if the player is just using it to push or break combat, or just other aspects of your world to its limits. But just for the simple wandering around junk, and even just for roleplay and flavor, let them have their fun. So anyways, IDK, if this is a hot take, rant, story, or just general advice video, just wanted you guys to be mindful of my own experiences, so it might help out your games or even your characters, players, and DMs. I hope that the video broadened your horizon a little bit when it comes to spells and character options, and if it did, thank you very much. I'm glad that you enjoyed it, and if you really enjoyed the video, then please like and subscribe for even more content. In the meantime, keep smiling, keep scheming, and I'll see all of you next time.